You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham. Thank you for being here. As always, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Please subscribe. I love seeing the thing grow bit by bit. We are getting there. Share the podcast, guys. Share it. I'm putting a lot of time and energy and effort into this, and every time I hear somebody is a regular listener, I feel extremely rewarded. Last night, my good friend Dave Glauser, we're playing basketball, and he said he never misses an episode. So shout out to Dave Glauser and everybody like him who is listening on the reg. Really appreciate you guys. Please subscribe. Please share it. Let's dive in. So today, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast. I apologize, but I do have a very busy work day. And I didn't want to let everybody down for those that are like Dave that are listening every single day. I couldn't bear the thought of not putting a podcast out today. So here we go. And if you watch on YouTube, you'll notice these are pretty much edit free. I just sit down and start talking. I've kind of got the gift of gab. So this one I've done a little bit less prep for, but I have a lot of mental prep, not a ton of computer prep, but a lot of mental prep. We're going to be talking NBA power rankings. We're going to be talking MVP race. We're going to be talking Brooklyn Nets and the playoffs and the Lakers. A lot of stuff going on here. The Brooklyn Nets, they won last night. They beat the Pelicans, which, by the way, I've said for a while, Stan Van Gundy needs to be fired. The team does not respond to him. He's now publicly criticizing his players. And these are young guys that just aren't out of the same mold that maybe he's used to coaching. And to go and publicly criticize your guys, even during like the mid-game interviews, he's doing it, like, oh, they're not hustling back on defense, or, oh, they suck at this, or, oh, high school kids could have executed that. Even if that's true, they're not responding to the way he's coaching. And they've got too much talent, and they've got a superstar in the making in Zion Williamson. I've said this in a podcast a few weeks ago. Stan Van Gundy's got to go. And I hate to call for a guy's job because you never wish ill upon anybody. But Stan Van Gundy has to go. I mean, this guy is really squandering an opportunity with some really quality young talent surrounding Zion Williamson. You have not just got Zion, but you also have Lonzo Ball, who is having a career year. It's a very young career, too. You have Brandon Ingram, who's an all-star. You've got Josh Hart. They've got players that are there that are young, all in like their early 20s, that can hoop. And they're going to miss the playoffs. And the West is stacked, and so it's not the end of the world if they miss the playoffs. But it's pretty bad, especially now that the NBA allows 10 teams essentially into the playoffs per conference because they have the play-in game. And the Pelicans won't even make the play-in game. So they lose last night to the Nets, okay? And the Nets are shorthanded. They're just with Kyrie. No James Harden. No Kevin Durant. Obviously, LaMarcus Aldridge retired. And so Kyrie's kind of carrying the load, and they're 6-4 in their last 10, not looking so great. I've said Kyrie's not really the guy to carry a team. He's proven that throughout his career. He couldn't do it in Cleveland before LeBron got there. He couldn't do it in Boston. In fact, they had a better record when he didn't play. He couldn't do it in Brooklyn before Kevin Durant arrived or got healthy and James Harden arrived. They also had a better record when he did not play. So Kyrie Irving has a very long history of not being able to carry teams. In fact, he has only that history. He's never been able to, he doesn't have anything on his resume that shows that he can carry a team. He's a fantastic second option, even a 1B, but he's definitely a Robin to somebody else's Batman, right? So they barely squeak by the Pelicans, and, they're in trouble because James Harden had what they're calling a setback with his hamstring injury. Well, I'm telling you right now, hamstring injuries are no joke. I remember as a kid, Ken Griffey Jr. was like my favorite baseball player, and the dude tore his hamstring, and his career was truly and sincerely never the same. And so obviously James Harden's hamstring isn't torn, but there's something going on there, and now they're saying it's back to square one where they got to rehab him, take some time, and clearly we know they're being extremely cautious going into the playoffs. This is a team that's like championship or bust, and I've said for a while now that if they don't get at least 20 games altogether, preferably 25 before the playoffs, their chances go way, way, way down, in my opinion. I don't care how good you are. They think they can just show up and win. You can't do that. You can't. I don't care how good you are. You can't just show up and win because you're more talented. That's not how a team sport works. If you have zero continuity, if you have zero chemistry together, you don't know each other's tendencies, you just can't expect to go out and win. It just doesn't work that way. The Clippers tried it last year and failed miserably. Didn't even make the conference finals, okay? They were far and away the favorites. They were like the absolute favorites in Vegas and in the media and everywhere. They were expected to win the title, did not even make the conference finals. That will be the Nets this year if they can't get these guys back and playing. And they've only got 14 games left. They played 7 together. So by my calculations, that's 21 games as a maximum that they could play together. And it's not going to happen because James Harden's going to sit out at least another week or two, it looks like. So Harden's going to miss at least like maybe another 6 games probably. So if he misses 6 more games, that leaves them with 8. That would get them to 15 games altogether, the 3 of them, assuming Kevin Durant comes back. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. I don't know if it's going to be enough. Now, they do have 3 studs to the Clippers only having 2 with Kawhi and Paul George. They also have some clutch players that we know of in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, whereas the Clippers only had Kawhi Leonard. So they do have an advantage. They are a more talented, better team than that Clipper team was last year, in my opinion. And if healthy, I think everybody would agree with that. But I'm telling you now, if you're a Nets fan, this should be real cause for concern. Now, if you're a Jazz fan, if you're a 76ers fan, if you're a Bucks fan, if you're a Clippers fan, if you're a Suns fan, this is something to be kind of excited about. Not like in a morbid, hey, we're excited people are injured kind of way, but in a, oh my goodness, like the door could be open. This could be our year. LeBron James and Anthony Davis still are not playing. Neither one of them is playing. This is a big deal, Jazz fans. This is a very, very big deal. If the Jazz can somehow get through the West, because the Lakers keep dropping in the standings, we need them to drop down to 6 because we don't want them to play in the 4-5 spot. Right now they're in the 5, I believe. I'm going to check in real time as we talk here. Yeah, Lakers are in the 5 seed. They're a game and a, or they're 2.5 games ahead of Portland, so it might be tough for Portland to close that gap. Portland's playing horrible lately, by the way. 3-7 in their last 10. I don't know what's going on there. Lillard didn't play last night, but McCollum, Nurkic, Norman Powell, they add these 3 guys to a team that was surging with Damian Lillard, and somehow they're worse. And it's like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. But the Mavericks haven't been great. All the teams right below the Lakers just haven't been that great. And we kind of need them to be, because I do not want the Lakers to be in the 4 or 5 spot, because that would mean the Jazz have to play them in the second round. The Jazz right now will probably end up playing, my guess is you're going to see Golden State surpass Memphis for the 8 seed. They'll win the play-in game and be the 7 seed. That's my guess for Golden State. They're playing really well right now. Steph Curry is on fire. Real quick, just to divert into Steph Curry, there's all this talk about, should he be MVP? No, Steph Curry should not be MVP. That's stupid talk. That is truly stupid talk. Is he the greatest shooter of all time? Yes, it's not even close. We know that. Is he the greatest point guard of all time? Yes, he is. I think it's a little bit closer. A lot of people are going to argue Magic Johnson, John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas. I think Steph Curry is the greatest point guard of all time. I don't even think that it's not even a question in my mind. I do think it's closer than, him and the second greatest shooter. But he's the greatest point guard of all time. He's the greatest shooter of all time. That is Steph love. The Steph criticism is he hasn't been able to carry teams single-handedly to even the playoffs. And this year it looks like he's going to. It looks like he will do it this year. They're surging. They're playing really, really well. Again, they're barely above 500. And even with him playing, they're like a few games above 500. So it's not like the most impressive thing in the world. I do think they'll be a legitimate 8 seed without the play-in game, which would mean they would make the playoffs. But being barely above 500 is not exactly carrying a team to anything special. They'll lose in the first round, even if they play they'll play the Jazz most likely if they're the 8 seed, and they'll lose in 5 games, I would imagine. If they're the 7 seed, they'll play the Suns, and they'll lose in 5 games, I would imagine, maybe 6. But they're not going anywhere. And so is Steph Curry the MVP? No, come on. Steph Curry, the MVP, his team's barely above 500. We do not give MVP awards to teams barely above 500. You have to be valuable. Value should equal wins. So let's be real there. Steph Curry is not the MVP because the value of him, financially, he might be the MVP. You know, he's a must-watch kind of player. If they allowed fans in arenas, for those that do, they're going to fill up as many seats as they're allowing to watch Steph Curry. They're going to sell a lot of jerseys. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on TV watching him. But is his fantastic play, is his 40-plus points, his 50% from three rampages on right now, is that leading to wins? He's 6-4 in their last 10, barely above 500. So that's not MVP to me because Kelly Oubre is no slouch. Draymond Green is no slouch. Andrew Wiggins is no slouch. Kevon Looney is no slouch. Steve Kerr is supposed to be the greatest coach in the history of the world, right? So to me, I just don't see that Steph is playing at an MVP level. Statistically, yeah, that's great, but it has to equal wins. It's had to equal wins for every other MVP in the history of the league. Even when Russell Westbrook averaged his triple-double, which he's done 3 times, he'll do it a 4th time this year, they were like the 6th seed, I think, going into the playoffs. I mean, they were several games better than the Warriors are. And that was in an 82-game season. They were 40-plus wins. You know, I think they had won like close to 50 games that year. So much different, you know, and he had to average a triple-double to be the MVP. So barely squeaking in a play-in game, I don't think that's worthy of MVP talk. But again, the window is open. The door is open. The window is now. I talked about that with the Utah Jazz. The window is now to win. Like these next few seasons are critical, but the door is actually open for this year. For this year. Because of injuries, no Anthony Davis, no LeBron James, no Kevin Durant, no James Harden. Those are literally the 4 best players on the 2 best teams in the entire league. Those are the teams that we're expecting to be on a collision course for the NBA Finals, and their 2 best players on each team are not playing. No offense, Kyrie Irving, but you are the 3rd best player on the Nets. The best players aren't playing. And they're continuing to have setbacks. And now the Nets have a very small chance of getting the team chemistry they need. I do think if you get Kevin Durant back more and more with Kyrie, they could get jiving a little bit. James Harden and Kyrie were jiving a little bit. Kevin Durant already played with Harden earlier in his career, so they know each other a little bit better than the usual. So they could get just their 10, 15 games altogether in the regular season, but maybe 25 with at least 2 of them, 30 games with at least 2 of them altogether. And then they have an easy first round, easier second round. And by then they're into the 3rd round and you're hoping that they're firing on all cylinders. The other question mark here though is how durable are these guys? Hamstrings are no joke. I said Ken Griffey Jr., it just nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged. Well, that's the injury that both Kevin Durant and James Harden are dealing with. Kevin Durant is obviously healed, and then he got his dead leg that has knocked him out for a couple games. But I don't know if it's extreme caution or if there's really something to worry about here. But even if it is extreme caution, I'd be worried because they're not playing. You can't expect to just show up and win. That's just not how it works. I was thinking last night, I went and played ball last night with some friends. And I'm not exactly the young, quick stud that I used to be on the basketball court. But I was thinking like how a lot of times in pickup ball, last night it was not necessarily my night, but a lot of other times in pickup ball, as like the older, less athletic guys, we'll put a team together against these guys that are like in their mid-20s, and we'll beat them. And it's not because we're better basketball players or more athletic basketball players, but it is because we're smarter and we've played together longer. And I thought about leagues I've been in where I was in my early 20s. And again, this is rec league stuff we're talking about here, but it's just a comparison that hopefully everybody can relate to. And in a rec league, you'll watch these like old men that are significantly less athletic and in less quality of shape than these younger, more athletic guys that are 10, 15 years younger than them. You'll watch them beat up on them, and it's just because they're smarter. They're more experienced. They know what they're doing. They know each other's tendencies. They know little tricks, and it just works. And so team chemistry is a huge, huge deal. The Nets should be very worried about that. They should also be worried if Harden's hamstring is even going to hold up, if they push him back too early, if he goes and plays 20-plus games in the playoffs. Is his hamstring going to hold up? Is Kevin Durant durable enough? What's going on in LA with Anthony Davis? Is he durable at all? I do believe LeBron James will be absolutely fine. They're just taking caution. Anthony Davis is a big question mark. I'd be worried. I'm telling you, the door is open for the Utah Jazz. The door is open for the Los Angeles Clippers. The door is open for the Philadelphia 76ers. The door is open for the Bucks. The door is open for the Suns. Those are teams that have a real legitimate shot at winning an NBA title this year that were not expected to win it this year. Maybe some people thought the Clippers could, but nobody's expecting the Jazz to. Nobody's expecting the 76ers to. Everyone is expecting Nets, Lakers, maybe Clippers, right? But now the Suns, are you kidding me? The Suns didn't even make the playoffs last year. So the door is open for a team to be that 2019 Toronto Raptor team where you benefit off of an injury to another team. You benefit because another team wasn't as deep or their superstar went down or whatever it might be, and you win a title that you weren't expected to win. But while I remember it, I know that the Warriors would win that title if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were fully healthy. I don't think it would have even been a close series, actually. It doesn't matter. Most people don't remember. Nobody's taken away from the Raptors championship. They earned it. They went through the playoffs, had a fantastic playoff run. Still had to beat a Warriors team where those guys did play some of the games. Steph played all of them, but obviously Kevin Durant and Klay only played, I think Klay played a couple games and Durant played one or two. But they benefited from that, and that could be this year's Utah Jazz. That could be this year's Phoenix Suns. That could be this year's 76ers. I believe the Utah Jazz are in the driver's seat. A little bit of an injury to Donovan Mitchell, but I think it's minor. I think he'll be just fine. But I'd be excited if I was a Jazz fan. I'd be very, very excited. And these are the types of things you need to capitalize on. These are the opportunities that don't come around all the time. You're a smaller market team, and you need to absolutely capitalize. So I'm not hoping for injury, just for the record. I'm actually hoping that LeBron James, Anthony Davis, James Harden, and Kevin Durant come back at full strength. That is a much more entertaining league for me. That is also just the right karma to put out into the world, that you want guys to be healthy and successful. So I really do sincerely want to see these stars come back and play at full strength. I'm just saying, if they can't, the Utah Jazz and some of these other teams better look hard at capitalizing on that. All right, guys, I'm going to wait and get into the power rankings and MVP race and things like that a little bit later. But this has been a fun podcast. It's been a quick one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button. I will see you later. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STBSportsTake.com. Simply the best in sports. 'Cause we are